Hello and welcome to my channel and to this short tutorial on upward facing dog. In this video, I'm going to break down the pose for you in terms of what's happening in all the different areas of the body when we practice upward dog. And I'm going to give you my best tips and cues to make this pose feel strong and safe and enjoyable. Does that sound good? Okay, let's get started. I'd like you to come down onto your belly and rest on your forearms so that you can look up towards me. So something like this. We're actually going to start breaking down the pose from this position so that we can take it easy a little bit and practice what's happening in the lower body first. So the first thing I want you to bring your awareness to is what's happening with your feet in upward dog. So they're pointed. We want the feet to be pointed, and one of the most common challenges people have is actually keeping the feet straight. So I have this tendency to let my ankles roll out to the side, and that tends to weaken the position for the ankles and the legs. So try to keep your heels facing up, the toes pointed nice and strong. And then you might see that I'm already doing it automatically. As you point your toes down and press the tops of the feet down into the floor, your kneecaps lift off the mat. So you're engaging these muscles here, the quadriceps, and as you engage them, the kneecap lifts and your knees come off the floor. That's the position that we want for the legs in upward dog. So you can practice that now with me. Point your feet, try to keep the heels up, don't let them roll out, and lift the kneecaps away from the floor with strong thighs. Okay? If you can't feel the muscle working, maybe just reach back and give it a poke and see if you can switch it on. Kneecaps off the floor. Then let's have a look at what's happening with the spine. So one of the most common complaints in upward dog is that people start to feel the pose going into the lower back and creating compression, which isn't what we want at all. We want to feel more like this pose is lengthening the spine rather than just bending it in half. And the way that we're going to get that experience is by using something called traction. What I mean by traction is we're going to try to lengthen the spine by creating two opposing forces on it. Okay, so in this context, what we're going to do, just on our forearms for now, we can still get the same idea. We're going to drag the elbows backwards along the mat towards our feet. Yeah, so the elbows aren't really going to move. Otherwise, we're going to fall down onto the floor. But just imagine that you're dragging them backwards. The friction on the floor helps to prevent you from moving. And then, whilst keeping the legs and the feet engaged, drag your elbows back and pull your heart forwards towards the front of your mat. Should feel like a nice stretch through the upper back. Shouldn't feel much going on in the lower back right now. And then exhale, just gently release. So practice that a few times, the idea of traction. Drag the elbows backwards whilst dragging your heart forwards, and you'll start to feel more like the pose is lengthening rather than compressing. Okay? We're going to practice that on our hands in the full pose in a minute. But let's first just think about what's happening with the hands when we come up into upward dog, because this is a really key point as well. So when we start to come up into our hands, I want you to think like it's almost like you're gripping the mat with your hands, and this part especially of your hand is pressing down into the floor. So push the floor away. Try not to just sink down into the floor like this, but actively push the floor away to engage the muscles of the arms. Okay, that's really key as well. Any problems with wrists? I found this idea of gripping the mat and pushing the floor away really helped to transfer the stress away from the wrists, and instead the force was distributed more evenly through the shoulders. So we've covered what's happening with the feet, with the legs, with the spine and the traction, with the hands. Now let's think about the shoulders. So for this, I want you to imagine that you're pushing the floor away, like we talked about with the hands, whilst looping the shoulders back and down. Okay, so I always think back and then down and lift the chest. And that should get you in a nice strong position where the strength of your shoulders is helping to support your body in the pose rather than just sinking down, which will then create compression and pressure in the spine. Okay, so just always feel like you're supported by the body and you're lengthening the spine. Let's have a look at what that looks like in action. So this time we're coming up onto the hands. Just watch me first and then you can do it along with me. So push the floor away, shoulders back and down, gripping the mat, and then lift the knees off the floor, heels straight, and start to drag your heart forwards to lengthen the spine. Should feel really nice. And then exhale, knees down, and you can come back onto your heels. Have a go now with me, and I'll show you one more time what it looks like. So let's get set up in that nice position. Fingers spread wide as well, really helps with the strength through the arms. Push the floor away, drop your hips, loop your shoulders back and down, lift the kneecaps, drag your heart through your hands to lengthen the spine. Make sure the heels aren't dropping out or in, and then exhale, knees, and push back and relax. The final part of the pose, which is again something that many people struggle with, is the position of the neck. And my teacher always used to tell me the neck is just an extension of the spine. So whatever's happening with your spine should also be happening with the neck. It's part of the spine. So with upward facing dog, if you have neck problems, you can just look straight forwards towards the front of your mat. If you'd like to get a little more lift through the cervical spine, you can definitely look upwards. But one tip that I found really helpful is lead with your chin. So what do I mean by that? I mean, instead of just crunching your neck back, show you what that looks like from the side, instead of just looking up and not using any muscles to do that movement, or even worse, actively trying to crunch the neck back. And I definitely have done this and tend to do this, so this is why I'm so aware of it. Instead, think about you're stretching the muscles at the front of the neck, and that will actively engage them. So think about first, draw your chin slightly forward and then lead the movement with the chin to look up. And that way, the position that your neck is in is supported by these muscles. You're not just hanging down under gravity and creating compression, but instead you're creating more length through the spine. Does that make sense? And then with the drishti, you could choose to look up, but what I tend to do is look towards the tip of the nose so that as I lift my chin, I'm not tempted to overstretch by sending even more energy backwards with my eyes. So I look forwards even though my chin is going up. Does that make sense? Okay, let's have a look at all of that in action, and if you want, you can practice along with me. Okay, so start at the toes, point the feet, but try not to let the heels drop in or out. Nice strong feet. Kneecaps lift off the floor. Shoulders loop back and down, push the floor away. Grip the mat with your hands. Drag your chest forwards as you drag your hands backwards. And then if you want, lead with the chin. Exhale, lower down. Great job. Okay, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate. Leave me a comment in the box below and I'll be sure to get back to you. And if you enjoyed this video and if the tips have helped you, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos in the future. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you soon.